Welcome, players. This is Games and Feelings, an advice show about playing games, being human, and dealing with the fact that games involve other humans. I am your host and question keeper, Eric Silver, and the most number of times I've bought the quote-unquote same game is the board game Sentinels of the Multiverse. I bought the base game, and then I bought 3 different expansions over like 2 years, and then they just released a remake, and now they're going to have a remake of this first expansion, which is coming out soon, and I will be spending that money on that. Brandon, you go.
Hello, gamers. It's me, Brandon Grugle, your game master for this episode. Sorry, Eric. I think it's going to be embarrassing. I think it's going to be probably Settlers of Catan for that hot 3 months that it was popular. I bought like every expansion, and then I literally opened none of them. And then like 2 years ago when I moved out of an apartment in New York, I gave them away to my friend.
That's perfect.
I've also bought probably nearly every Pokemon game, but you know, that counts too.
Mm-hmm. Hello, I'm Casey, Toney. I was tempted to spell my last name. That's like such a habit when I say my last name. But you could just look in the show notes if you're curious about that. The game I probably bought the most. This is such a tough question because the amount of money I've wasted on games, especially games I've never played, that I buy and then just like don't play or play the very beginning of and go, oh, I'll get back to that, is like massive. A huge number of games. I feel like maybe I'm just going to say, I don't know if this is true, but maybe it's Resident Evil 4. I have it on a bunch of different platforms. I'm excited to replay it with the like HD texture pack that released recently, and great game, classic.
Casey loves running away from monsters that are walking slowly towards him in some sort of isometric
I love
design.
Stopping before I fire my gun.
Absolutely. Well, it is so great to have both of you on. Also, Brandon, you take 20 points of necrotic damage because I'm still the game master here. I'm sorry.
Wait, Eric, I've knocked out. I gotta roll some death saves. Shit.
I assume you're dead. You died. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
So before we get into the advice questions, I have a question for both of you. This is our first segment called NFAQs, Not Frequently Asked Questions. I looked in the Prima guide and they didn't have this answer for me, so I'm going to have to go to the source. There is no Mew under the truck, I've also discovered, which is very upsetting.
I still maintain that is real, and I will go with that till I die.
That's fine.
Hey, look, with mods, you can do anything. You know, you can believe anything. I just want to say, you got 2 letters into that, and I was like, don't say T's. Don't say T's. NFAQ. Okay.
This
is the NFT corner, everybody. We're going to be looking at some concerned apes today.
All right, guys, I've set up a thing. I've set up an NFT creator where we're just going to do Donkey Kongs because that is the new hot thing. Which Donkey Kong is your favorite? Do you like Funky? Do you like Candy? I'm a Diddy fan, and it's worth 2 Ethereum. I don't know what that means.
I just got a fresh new Pixel Pup, Eric. I'm happy to be here, happy to show it off.
See, this is what happens when you let 2 people who do editing get on the microphone. They have so much pent-up energy. They just throw it out there.
Well, I know you can just cut whatever you don't want, so might as well get it all out.
Exactly.
There.
We just go all in.
Well, this is perfect for both of you. My not so frequently asked question is that both of you are audio editors and sound designers by trade. Specifically, people might know you from Tabletop RPG podcast, Brandon, of course, for Join the Party, and Casey for Neo Scum, and also for the fictional excursions that people go on in Hey Riddle Riddle.
That's right.
So what are some principles that you two keep in mind to turn like people playing a game into a actual narrative podcast episode?
I think about a lot of things, which is like subconscious, which is unfortunate. But if I had to like try to pull them out of my brain, the number one editing thing I always think about for anything I'm editing is like, this is sort of a college essay where like I have to think about the structure. And also if you have like repetitive phrases or things that are repeated ideas or words, like just cut them. That's the number one thing I always go by. But for like RPG stuff specifically, I want to make sure that one, the audience knows what's going on. So like mechanics wise, rules wise. So often, you know, players will ask questions that are useful for the audience. But if players are asking questions that are not useful for the audience, like it's explained well previously and they didn't need the clarification, I'll cut that. I want to make sure the action is separated from, like, the dialogue is separated from the player talk somehow. So I use some panning to do that. We can set it off with sound effects, with ambience, but I prefer that to be set off somehow for the listener. So it's like a demarcation point, in world and not in world. I think the thing that I've learned over the past couple years is like, or leaned into is, and this is true for most podcasts, like there's a progression of at the beginning, like you're still getting to know your hosts and your players and your characters and stuff. So you're a little bit tighter in that front half because you're still trying to earn the audience's buy-in. But, 4 years, 5 years into JTP or whatever we are now, like I can be much looser because the people are there half for the story and half for us just having a fun time,
Absolutely, for sure. Brandon, there's something that you told me a little while ago, which is that you never want a player to sound stupid on the microphone.
Yes.
So when someone is asking a game question, either you ask a good question that you think the audience wants, or you ask a question that you might have just missed, or you weren't paying attention, and then that's the thing that you cut out.
Yeah, I always want to make sure that the people sound as competent as possible. I believe that is the audio charity I give to my friends and colleagues.
My audio charity is Cars for Kids. Casey, what about you? What do you keep in mind when you go from gameplay to narrative podcast?
Like Brandon said also about so much of it becoming subconscious, that is a big thing, because I used to think far more actively and consciously about this question. Now I've just developed like a voice and a taste. So the shows I work on they're all comedies. They contain drama, they contain action. I am like very much trying to portray a like cinematic, dramatic, I guess captivating story in that regard. But they are all funny improvisers also joking around. They're going to do riffs and stuff like that. I came to this as actually not really a fan of actual play podcasts. I just didn't happen to listen to a lot of them. And I think there was a pretty big gulf between highly produced stuff like Adventure Zone, which I did listen to back in the day and enjoy, and a lot of the actual play stuff out there, which was kind of just raw, very raw stuff. And like, no disrespect or anything. It's just like I wasn't into it. And so when I got into editing, like a blessing for me was the fact that I had no experience. I got into editing because we started recording Neoscum. I was like an improviser, and we all took passes at the episode. And I think I was just like the most particular. I was like, I don't know how to fix this, but there's like a cut breath here, or the pacing sounds weird here. So I'm going to like do what I have to do to figure it out. So I like learned completely on the job. And then that literally became my job like full time. And
that's incredible. Holy shit.
Yeah. If you listen to like early Neoscum compared to, I would say even like, 19 episodes in, but especially now. Anyway, so going from that, like I felt very free to pursue what I thought was fun and not really have preconceptions about like what this genre needed, what that kind of like editing should look like. And a couple things I wanted to do is I knew a couple other shows that had very funny people on them that would get a lot of the like jokes and riffs cut because it was considered distracting. And to me, that was vital that stuff stay in, like, because that's like, these people are so funny. That is like part of the experience. When you're playing a role-playing game with your friends, you have those dramatic moments, you have that investment, but part of what makes it not just a play, a long form mono scene, is the fact that there are people playing a game and having fun together. And that to me was always important.
We find that an actual play podcast is similar to even this podcast, which is that we are having a conversation. Yeah, there's some segments that we're going to do, and there's some reasons why we're here, and I'm going to bring up some questions. But like, the banter is why people are there. We just took out the dumb parts and the parts where we went, hold on, I forgot what I'm talking about. Like, it seems like that's what both of you are getting at, is that it is very similar to a recorded thing, but you're just making it sound as good and funny as possible.
Yeah. I think like the biggest principle for me is, if it's good, no matter how it is good, even if it's somebody spilling like water on the table or something like that, if it's good, It stays in. Find a way to make it work. And what makes that particularly exhausting is sometimes like it's far, far easier to just cut something than to make something work that is messy. but like I'm committed to, like, it hurts me to cut stuff that could possibly be good, could possibly entertain anybody. And so, like, and another principle is to please, like, myself. Like, what would thrill me if I saw this in a movie, if I heard this? Like, if I am not at the end of an action sequence, like, fucking, like, pumping my fist and, like, getting hyped, then I'm not done yet. You know what I mean? Like, I have to keep working on it until I achieve that for myself, and just hope that my taste aligns with enough people that, you know, they enjoy it too. So
I love that. I think that's something me and Eric, you and I have sort of like, it's been nice to have us be on polar opposite sides of that coin, at least at the beginning of JTP, because we sort of hit in the middle of that in a nice place, I think.
I think it also helps that both of you are also play Dungeons and Dragons and like playing. And even if it's yourself doing it on the microphone, I think that it's being able to access that. And like, this is the second time maybe you've heard it is kind of interesting as well.
First of all, the second time I've heard it is always helpful, because I have like an inherent sense when I'm getting to editing that like I know what's coming next in a very internalized way. But I think the fact that on Neoscum, I'm not the GM, I'm just a player. And I think not always, but traditionally, I feel like actual play, it's like, okay, the GM is in charge of the story, so they're also the one who edits, or at least they talk things over with the editor. They're the one kind of like producing. And we take very much a group role on Neoscum, but just my perspective as an editor always came from the place of like a player. Like, how can I capture the excitement that I felt in that moment and present that to other people in a way that is like not precious about the overall story, but it's precious about the moment to moment experience of being in this story.
Hell yes. I love that. God, I'm so fucking glad I'm not the editor of Join the Party.
Yeah.
Because after this, I'm like, I did it. Yeah, it's like it's yours now. Like, you already messed with it. Like, what is this? I hope it comes out as good as possible.
I also just don't, I mean, maybe this is just the way I like to work, but I think collaboratively you end up with a better end product than if there's generally speaking, there's like a single person at the helm of or at the wheel, you know? Like, I think if Eric had edited the show himself, like, it would have been great, of course, but like, it wouldn't have been the same story that came out.
I would have cut so much more, because also I would have been self-conscious about my own stuff. I would have cut maybe things, Casey, the thing that you're saying, of players doing stuff that they enjoyed, but I'm like, oh, but that didn't make any sense. Why is that there? We need to stay on track. No, I 100% agree with that, and I'm so glad that that's not my responsibility. Casey, you get 20 hit points back, because that was a really good point. Also, Brandon, you're still dead. I'm sorry. You're going to have to just make a whole new character.
That's fine. I'll reroll. It's fine.
All right. So we also have Schmanden Schmoogle, the brother of Brandon Grugle here.
I'm a paladin now.
Voice. He's cooler and conveniently has none of the weaknesses that got the last one killed.
I'm super religious now, though.
Yeah.
Super Christian.
Fucking stupid. All right, let's go to the actual advice questions, shall we? I have cold questions from our wonderful listeners who love both games and feelings, and let's take a stab in trying to help them out in the things that they want to know about games all over the gaming spectrum. All right, let's start with this first question that we have from Julia, or I also reserve the right to come up with those silly names that come up in advice columns. So this is from Julia, or Easy Mode, Easy Life. How do you get past / not feel shame for playing on easy mode or not playing games that are famously difficult? I also want to give a little bit of context here for those who don't know. Video games think you're a fucking wuss if you don't do the hardest thing ever. And it's even like explicitly coded into a bunch of these games. I have 3 really good examples. In Twisted Metal 2, a game about driving a demonic ice cream truck around and killing other people. If you play the game on easy, the game just ends before the first boss with a big sign that says no losers allowed beyond this point.
What? Fuck that.
That was absolutely like 90s, early 2000s. That was absolutely the vibe in all of this.
Extreme, you're a big fucking baby. And literally that was in Wolfenstein. The easiest mode was called Can I Play Daddy? And there's an image of the main character being a baby with a bonnet. And in Postal 2, which is again a game about just shooting people up with guns.
Cool game.
Cool, really cool game. There's a Lieber mode, which was a shot at U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman, who went at the game for being too violent.
Oh, my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
I have so much to say on this topic. I'll try to. So I'm ready to burst right now.
Go off.
Oh, Casey's gonna fucking burst, guys. Go in.
I'm about to blow. This is like where the rough, like shitty, generic rock music comes in as I do my Tom Likas kind of. All right, here we go. We're gonna talk about difficulty in video games. No, I think this is Julia or Easy Mode, Easy Life brings up a great cogent question to the times because I do think this is an important topic, especially because we're coming on shortly after the release of Elden Ring, which has taken the world by storm and is part of a series by a developer that is notorious, some say slightly unfairly, for quote unquote difficult video games. I think that kind of machismo of the 90s games where it was like difficulty is how you present your masculinity.
Yeah.
I think you have a couple things there. You have number one, catering to an audience, which at that time, thankfully, this is less and less true, was greatly like male dominated and young male dominated. So it's like very teenage mindset. And a lot of those developers, like the range of developers right now, again, this is an industry that still needs growth, but the range of developers now is far more diverse than it was back then when you had much smaller teams of young, like white male programmers doing these video games. It also ties into just like marketing of that era. If you think like kind of the gross marketing of the 90s, where there was such a vibe being a 90s kid of like Earthworm Jim, kind of like, I don't know, this gross kind of masculinity that was really embraced. And I think you see the difficulty presented in these games, both as a result of that and also contributing to that culturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, story modes are actually pretty common in a lot of games, like a difficulty even less than easy mode, and accessibility options are better than they have ever been before. It is not in every video game, but you look at something like Last of Us 2 or Horizon, or just I can't think of a ton of examples off the top of my head, but they have just extensive accessibility options, which I think is awesome. And I think more and more, especially as games become more cinematic, people are more and more okay with stories and experiences in games being experienced in whatever way makes it fun for the player. Maybe hard mode is the intended way. Maybe that's the balance that somebody who can handle a challenge, the developers view as like the ideal kind of expression of that game. But they're like, we want other people to enjoy it. And I think in something like Elden Ring, this is a big discourse also right now. I do think the way Elden Ring does it, where there is no difficulty mode, is also totally fine, because it is not chastising anyone for difficulty. It is just choosing to present a game in a single way, and there are methods within the game to kind of make that easy mode through the systems itself.
Yeah.
But like games where they chastise, like even the newer Wolfenstein games still did that kind of as a throwback, but they chastise players for not playing on the hardest difficulty, is hopefully kind of a relic of a much less inclusive gaming industry and medium.
I totally agree. It's not something I've honestly thought about until recently, because I played a lot of video games as a kid, sort of fell off, or like sort of just went to Nintendo. And Nintendo is like great for its sort of like accessibility in the general sense of the word. I love watching people play video games. I never quite realized why I enjoyed that. And it's because I don't want to be challenged personally in my relaxing time, like I want to see other people overcome challenges, like in movies and TV as well. And like, that's satisfying to see, but I don't want to be sitting there pissed off and grinding, and it's just not fun for me. So like watching my partner Lauren play video games recently, where like I don't give two shits what difficulty setting she's on, but like I want to have the difficulty setting where it's still fun for me to watch and for her to play. And I didn't even think about the one-to-one of difficulty settings and accessibility before until like this year. It seems like such an obvious thing to like allow anyone to play your video game if they want to in the way that they want to. Like, it just seems so simple, and it blows my mind that didn't used to be the case. You know, like, why would you want to exclude people from your possible market? You know.
What's kind of funny about what you were saying, Casey, is that now Elden Ring has this issue that like they are, in so many different ways, the From Software, the people who made Elden Ring and the people who made the Souls games and Demon Souls and Dark Souls, they're kind of just like put it out there. They're like, here you go, here are all the mysteries, and we're not going to tell you anything, right? Mm-hmm. And that is kind of a way of being like, we're hands off, interact with this piece of art in the way that it is. We've kind of made it the way that it is. Do your thing. But the community that have coalesced around that has always used Get Good as like a cudgel against you. It was like, well, if you can't figure this out and you have a critique against it, then you should have just been better. But now there's like some backpedaling saying that Get Good was like a community bonding thing. And it just demonstrates.
Yeah, oh yeah, it never was.
It's like, are you
It was absolutely
kidding me?
always a toxic subset of the community. And I think there's a degree of that toxicity that like the fact that Elden Ring is so popular and the fact that even like previous games grew more and more popular, there was like pushback like, hey, we're not bad for being toxic. And actually, we were never toxic.
It feels like the NFT crowd. It does. It's like the Diamond Hands bullshit or whatever, you know?
It's right. Yeah. When I said get good, I mean get good, brother. I can see you growing in your soul. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Obviously. So I think that touching on if we can help Julia or Easy Mode, Easy Life push through, how do you not feel shame about it? Is like, Casey, it's exactly what you were saying. It's all toxic masculinity, baby. Like, if you realize that the people are putting it together because they were put down before, then when you're creating your own community of doing whatever you want and playing whatever games that you want, you don't have to be the extreme person who lived in the late 1990s playing the hardest game possible. We're living in the 2020s, baby. There's a global pandemic, but no one's going to yell at you if you put easy mode on. You know what I mean?
And if 12 million people are playing a video game, then you can bet that even if a small fraction of them want to play on, lowest quote unquote difficulty, then that is still a lot of people who want to play at that version. And I think you should know that whatever vocal subsets of a community might chastise you for that, there are just as many, or at least plenty of people in that community that you can find who will just be happy that you are there and that you're experiencing this alongside them. And I think that is another thing about the whole like get good crowd is I do think that is a small toxic minority that is being kind of drowned out by a lot more positivity and a lot more just kind of acceptance of this as a fun shared experience that is meant to be played by as many people as possible and experienced together as a community rather than, a gate kept. You say gatekeeped?
Gatekeeping.
Little corner of video gaming. Yeah.
I'm gonna put forth an idea, Eric. You ready for this?
Please.
You've heard of death of the author. Now it's death of the developer, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't fucking care about your intentions. It's my video game now.
Yeah. I'm 100% on board with that. That's exactly what I'm saying about what From Software did. They're like, I'm dead. I don't care. Whatever. If you pray to me enough, maybe I'll come down and patch something. But like, other than that, I'm dead. You're fine. So yeah.
Well, if you want to cheese this boss, do it. If you want to summon 3 people to fight it for you while you go hide in the corner, like, go for it. Like, yeah, I think that's great.
100%. I find it really interesting that like, the 2 choices we have are, one, the developer actively antagonizing you and poking you with a stick for choosing an easy mode, and then do nothing. Like, is there a way for a video game to say it's okay to do something on a different format, or is that like a little too handholdy and we're going into like, you're just opening up for someone to call you a snowflake and not caring about ethics in video game journalism? You know what I mean?
Well, people are always going to call you a snowflake and accuse you of not caring about ethics in gaming journalism. But I really do think you're seeing that a lot. If you look at the amount of games now that release with story difficulties
Right.
Like Ubisoft games probably have those a lot. Like certain like EA games have them. Most Sony first party games I know have them now. I do not think that is stigmatized as a whole, especially by developers like it used to be. So there's progress there for sure.
I think language matters in that case too, like calling it story mode versus, easiest or whatever is important too. So
That's a good point. Yeah. You don't want someone being like, good for bad gamers. This is the best game for gamers who don't have hand-eye coordination.
Imagine if a book had a difficulty rating,
Honestly, though, personally, I could use that sometimes. I would, oh man, if I could, like, I guess that's what abridged versions are, though, if you think of it. It's like, oh man, I really want to play War and Peace on easy mode. Man. It's just a little too much for me.
Yeah, you have to go on Spark Notes and they tell you to get good 5 times before you're allowed to go on there. Shakespeare doesn't count unless you read it without a translation. You know summons. You only use this weapon. You can't read Romeo and Juliet without it. Hey, it's the snack break. I'm eating an Italian meat combo sandwich with that really good vinegary dressing. Mamma mia, that's the good stuff. No, you can't have any. I've already eaten all of it. I've unhinged my jaw and eat it all at the same time. Thank you, everyone who's listening to the show. Keep telling friends about it. This is the best way to help Games and Feelings grow and be the premier games advice podcast in all of podcasting. We have some very incredible guests coming up, including Merritt K of Channel F, Lauren Shippen of The Bright Sessions, and Jacob Geller, one of the best critical thinkers of games and storytelling on YouTube out there. Very excited about who's going to come up. If there's anyone who you want to come back, we're going to try to get like a revolving list of guests going. So please let us know. Hit us up on socials or in the Multitude Discord. I'd like to see you there. Hello to our newest patrons, Maureen and Sean, and thank you again to our producer-level patron, Polly Burridge, who always rolls the Yahtzee when she wants to. Make sure to hop on the Patreon at patreon.com/gamesandfeelings. We have 4 full episodes of the DLC, the extra podcast on the Patreon, where I answer games advice questions from advice columns of yore with my partner in life, love, and podcasting, Amanda McLaughlin, patreon.com/gamesandfeelings. Check out the other shows that are part of the Multitude Collective. I think you'd like Spirits, which has my partner in life, love, and podcasting, Amanda McLaughlin, on it. Spirits is a history and comedy podcast focused on everything folklore, mythology, and the occult, told through the lens of feminism, queerness, and modern adulthood. Every week, mythology buff Julia and her childhood best friend Amanda get together to learn about a different story from mythology and folklore over drinks. Everything from the mythology origins of major franchises like Lord of the Rings and Wonder Woman to modern urban legends and to a roundup of werewolf stories from around the world. There are nearly 300 episodes that have come out over the last 5 years. I saw a meme recently that was like all millennial podcasts are one person reading a ton of research they made excitedly and the other person going, damn, that's fucked up every 5 minutes. And like, if you want a mythology version of that, listen to Spirits. Dive in at spiritspodcast.com or search for Spirits wherever you get your podcasts. Ooh, we have our first sponsor. Ooh, Games and Feelings. Woo, 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 woo. We are sponsored this week by Shaker and Spoon. Shaker and Spoon is a subscription cocktail service that helps you learn how to make handcrafted cocktails right at home. Every single box comes with enough ingredients to make 3 different cocktail recipes developed by world-class mixologists and real mixologists, not just like a bartender in a vest. All you need to do is buy 1 bottle of that month's spirit or alcohol, and you have everything you need to make 12 drinks at home. And it is $40 per box, plus the cost of the bottle. That is such a cost-effective way to enjoy cocktails at home. I don't know where you're living, but in New York City, the going price of an expensive cocktail is truly $16 to $18. So you might as well just do it at home at this point, and you can be a bartender in a vest as well. I've been using Shaker and Spoon for years. They're local right here in Brooklyn. I just got the Añejo Let's Go box, which uses Añejo tequila, which is one of the cloudy golden tequila, to make wonderful, cool cocktails called the Feather Billet, the Beat Goes On, and the Tijuana Brass. I don't know what they are, but they sure do sound fun, and I get to tell people that I did it. Invite some friends over, shake up your nightcaps, have it for your next game night, or be the best house guest of all time with your Shaker and Spoon box. Get $20 off your first box at shakerandspoon.com/gamesandfeelings. That's shakerandspoon.com/gamesandfeelings. And now, back to the games. I have another question here, and this is about the relationship between players and GMs. Kind of the reason why I wanted to start this show is that when you hear people like sharing their RPG horror stories, the solution to every single one is talk to each other. So I feel like that's kind of where this is going to start, but I did want to touch on this. This is from Natalie, or as I like to call them, saving throw for charisma. Tips on navigating incompatibility between players and GMs. Sometimes a group that doesn't click turns people off from a game completely, but it's hard to recognize and rectify that in a non-awkward way. This question is inspired by a DM I once had who told a friend he was starting a new campaign and not inviting her because he thought that her playing style was incompatible with his DM style. He did not handle it well, but I know that there were ways to have that conversation.
Woof.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I don't have very strong thoughts on this. I'm actually really interested to hear your guys' takes. So I'll just say one thing. In a lot of cases, I think these are just interpersonal struggles.
Yeah.
More so than, I mean, you can, of course, approach it and ask through the lens of, a role-playing game. But a lot of times it's just like, yeah, this is isn't it hard being a group of humans with different perspectives and tastes and interests? And so I feel like, one thing that is always helpful to do is maybe literally just like read up on conflict mediation.
I think that's a really actually solid piece of advice there.
I think Natalie thinks that there is a type of thing as being incompatible, but it seems like I agree with what Casey said. The situation that Natalie has laid out feels bad. And there's like, we're doing the thing that you do on advice shows, which is like you look at the language and be like, is there something else going on here?
I don't think there is incompatibility in players and DMs. There's incompatibility in people, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's not incompatibility, but like not everyone gets along with everyone. That's just a fact of life. And like the way you navigate that is the level of like interpersonal emotional maturity that you have, right? Like that's just what that is. So like I had a friend who was GMing a game, and they had a player that played one session and they were a nightmare and they really ruined the session. So the other players like approached the DM and were like, hey, we really want to keep playing this game, but like, I don't know if we can play with this person. And so there's lots of ways you can go about that.
When you say nightmare person, you mean like they were making everyone else's time bad, right?
Yes. Like they were, dominating the game, not letting other people speak, not letting other people play in scenes, sort of like not just like not knowing the rules or like being confused. Like that's just normal and everything is great there. It's like, those people that you've been at a party with and they just like take over everything.
Yes. I want to clarify that like this person is only a nightmare because they're making everyone have a bad time. And like that is
right,
where
exactly.
we are branding that.
And not recognizing it, which is the key point, right?
Right.
So like in that point you have two options. Like you can either just do what this question sort of asks, which is like maybe just keep going without talking to the person. But I think the smart thing to do is like approach them and give them the opportunity to show that they recognize what happened and like want to keep playing or want to keep being in this group and like, give them another chance if you want to, like if that's the kind of like forgiveness you want to give, I guess, for lack of a better word. But it is just about all communication, right? Like it's just all communication when you come down to it.
Absolutely. I am 100% sure that this DM hated this player and he was looking for an excuse not to have them in their game. That example, that's what it feels like. I feel like the only time that there is an incompatibility is when there is like literally some genre or game mechanic stuff that is butting heads against each other. Like if you're a DM and you're like, hey, I want to play a game where you have to keep track of your items, you have to keep track of your money. We're plying survival. This this might as well be Oregon Trail. You can get sepsis. You have to make sure to sleep, et cetera, et cetera. And another player's like, no, I want to play like this. I want to have a JoJo stand and I want to have 5 pets and I don't care about rules. I want to roll like once a turn, which again is totally fine. But I think that is the only time that those two things are butting heads. And if you guys didn't have a conversation to start with or a session 0 about what this game is, then I don't know how you get into that situation. And then both people, they'll be like, oh, this won't work. I shouldn't do this. And this is not how neither of us want to spend our time.
Right.
But then they're like, hey, but I don't hate you. You don't want to play this crunchy game and I do, but like that doesn't mean that we can't be friends and we're going to hang out and play Jackbox on Fridays.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, don't put D&D as a cover for being like rude to your friend. That sucks.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
I think I think semantically that can be tricky because I do think, Eric, what you illuminated right there is people might want to get different things out of an experience. Like for me, I don't think I could fully enjoy, or this isn't to say I couldn't enjoy it, but I don't think I have enough free time that I could spend in a D&D campaign that was like no table talk, kind of no fun, like fully serious. That is not to say that doesn't have value. That's not to say if I had infinite time and could do things like other D&D games at the same time that I wouldn't enjoy that. But I understand that is not necessarily a table I would want to spend my time at, even if those people were my close friends. But the difference is that kind of discovery and that discussion needs to happen together. Like you and the GM should be on the same page, even if you are both looking for completely different games. You don't have to be a part of that game. It doesn't make you lesser for not wanting to be a part of that game or for a GM not wanting to put on the kind of game that you want. But the moment that is kind of not a mutual like consensus between the two of you, I think at the end of the day, it is also important just to remember that like, yeah, you can still play Jackbox on the side. Like Eric said, you can still be friends even if this specific D&D game or role-playing game is not the game you are looking to play.
I mean, this is exactly the same as like getting into a relationship with anyone. Like you should have these discussions ahead of time so you don't end up 4 years into it and you're like, oh, did you not want to move into this house or pay for whatever, like just have the discussions ahead of time.
Yeah, make sure to tell your DM if you want to have children before you get into any D&D
Yes. And I do, whether or not they ask.
Hi, I'm Casey. I'm playing a paladin and I want to have 3 to 5 children.
Braden,
Jaden spelled differently than the first two Jadens, and then Braden again, but Braden and Braden are spelled the same. Incredible. Well, I really want to hit this question very quickly. This person asks us, hey, Cards Against Humanity makes me feel bad. Do you have any other recommendations for party games that are straightforward and easy to pick up? This is from Pooping Back and Forth Forever. Isn't that funny? And I want to recommend Jackbox. Just to start.
Yeah, I mean,
oh
absolutely.
boy, that was a name, huh?
That was a card. That was a card in Cards Against Humanity.
I love party games. This is like my favorite thing to do. My favorite is probably Monikers. It can get a little bit wild, but not in the offensive way, like Cards Against Humanity does. I just recently played a game called The Business Walrus, which if you love improv, you will love this game. You basically have to like go into a Shark Tank style thing with a couple cards that give you a product, and you have to pitch that product to the Business Walrus.
I want to play that game so badly. It sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. We'll play it for like a multitude hangout or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you just want to play the regular game, you can just play Apples to Apples that it was based on.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, Jackbox was already said, but there are like a billion games in there that you can find. Something like Quiplash, I think, is a similar concept, but even, I would say, has the potential to be funnier. I think why Cards Against Humanity was popular at the time was because, unlike Quiplash, like, I would never play Quiplash with my parents because my parents don't quip and they wouldn't have a good time.
Right.
Whereas, like, Cards Against Humanity had very kind of low-hanging, non sequitur, like quote unquote funny things that allowed people who felt like they weren't, necessarily totally comfortable with that. Like somebody who wouldn't be able to come up with a good quip, but of a series of cards of, quote unquote funny quips could maybe piece something together. But the thing is, you don't have to play Quiplash. There are a billion other games within the Jackbox series, and party games that I don't know about, where you can express yourself and be funny and kind of build that sense of camaraderie in, I would say, far less inherently offensive ways.
Actually, exactly why I recommend monikers for a party game, because I play it with my mom all the time, with my family. She doesn't quite get everything, but still has a great time. And there are built-in things within monikers, like you have to do a charades round, like that just make it fun regardless of who you are. So
I love that.
Fibbage 2 is great with your parents also, I'll say, just of Jackbox.
Yeah.
Fibbage 2, great choice.
Yeah, and I've hung out with Brandon's mom, and she's a lot of fun to be around.
You haven't?
No, I haven't, but I thought it was a funny thing to say, wasn't it?
I want to play monikers with Brandon's mom now. Sounds like...
Well, I think we're going to keep a running tally of all of the party games that people should play other than Cards Against Humanity. We should just keep it on the Games and Feelings website or something. I want to go to our final segment here on Games and Feelings. This is called Queries from the Internet. Sometimes I run out of questions, or I just kind of get lost within the internet, and I found some ways for us to maybe help someone on the internet, get some advice for themselves. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
I love it.
Wonderful.
Now, the internet is...
well, when you go deep enough into the sea, there's a big net. And we're going to help some fish down there figure out games they can play with fins.
Cool.
That's the undersea net with all the porn, right? Okay.
Yeah, when you get deep enough and where there's just anglerfish down there, that's the dark net.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I want to use my new favorite Twitter account called Depths of Wikipedia, which kind of just takes screenshots from random Wikipedia articles that really show how deep the internet's encyclopedia goes. And I learned something about the Xbox 360 controller lately. This is in non-gaming uses on the Xbox 360 controller Wikipedia. The United States Navy has announced that it plans to use Xbox 360 controllers to control periscopes on new Virginia-class submarines for both cost and familiarity reasons.
Gross.
Dear God.
I don't know enough about it. I need the Wikipedia sources for this, but there's very much for drones and bombers and stuff like that. I feel like I'd heard that the controls for those started to skew more and more like gaming controllers, because players are already familiar how to do it in Call of Duty 4.
Look, it makes sense in a pure neutral point of view, but it fucking sucks, huh?
It sucks so much. Casey, you're 100% right. This particular article was reported by the AP in 2017. Thanks, Trump. Good thing Joe Biden definitely fixed all that.
Yeah.
There was a great sentence that said they're also cheaper. A controller typically costs less than $30. Thanks, whoever put that together. Thanks, AP.
I mean, the U.S. military is pretty strapped for budget. So
compared to the $38,000 cost of a photonic masked hand grip and imaging control panel. I agree with what you said. It makes sense, but fuck, guys.
But here's the thing: all the contractors who make those extremely expensive parts, in a lot of cases, those parts they're only expensive because they're bought by militaries with trillions of dollars. Well, one of them with trillions of dollars, others with billions. You know what I mean? So it's that other grip did not cost that much to produce or manufacture. So I mean, whoever thought of using a game controller thing was really doing some kind of fucking Moneyball breaking the system thing, because
it was Jonah Hill, actually. He did it.
It was Jonah Hill. Good for him.
Yeah, he's getting into the military game.
Casey, the only thing that I can compare this to when you said that about military contracts is that this is the equivalent of your doctor prescribing some anti-stress, anti-anxiety medication for you, but without insurance, it's $10,000 a bottle. It's or you could play Super Monkey Ball 2. That's on sale. It's on sale on the eShop.
But Doctor, I am Super Monkey Ball 2.
Incredible. The question that I do want you two to answer is, what do you wish you could swap out for a game controller in your real life if you could use a game controller instead of what you're already using? I think I'm already a pretty good driver, but I feel like it would be even easier for me to drive using, like, you know, when you have Mario Kart, it's the reverse. Instead of using the wheel, you're using, if I could use a GameCube controller, that would make things even easier for me.
Power sliding would be so much easier.
Yeah, I can finally drift in my dad's SUV.
There must be a way to do this, but could you edit with a game controller?
I know people who have like made kind of custom settings, and for a while, actually, I will say there was a period when I was having like really, really bad hand pain where I did experiment with that using DS4 Windows. I think like with my DualShock 4, with like my right hand having my mouse and my left, it was like way more effort. There's where I stopped almost immediately.
Sure. That sounds like a YouTube challenge. When if you explain it to someone and they're like, and then what did you throw to an ad for Squarespace? Like, what were you doing? Then you know you've gone too far.
It might be fun to cook with a controller.
Yeah, if you could, I'm much better at hitting buttons than trying to like use a food thermometer.
This is kind of not the scenario, but if I could control myself like a sim, I feel like I'd finally get things done. You know, if I could just like click on something and then force myself to walk over there, and like, oops, I peed my pants, but like whatever.
Casey,
like,
just walk to the bathroom.
just walked. I can't.
I keep trying to do Rosebud, and my checking account's still at $20. What's happening?
I'm playing the Grim Reaper in chess.
I can't remember to go eat because I'm trying to swim and there's no way to get out of the pool. Someone's going to write in and being like, I'm trying to have this conversation with one of my players, but they keep speaking to me in Simlish. What do I do?
I can tell my player isn't enjoying this game because his diamond is red.
Incredible. So, Casey, I think you win that question by saying controlling real life would be easier with a controller.
Yeah.
100%. Hell yes. Well, that is another episode of Games and Feelings. I hope both your games and your feelings bar has gone up. Hey, where can we find either of you on the internet?
You can find me at Brandon Grugle on Twitter, and that's it. You can't find me anywhere else. Don't look. Except for JTP. Look on JTP. I'm there.
You can find me on Twitter at Casey Pony. Now I do have to spell it. Now there's a reason to spell it.
Yeah.
It's CASEYPONEY, just like my last name, TONEY. Yeah, you can follow me there. You can listen to Neoscum. We're about to finish our first season after like 100 some episodes. We're getting real close to that, and thank you. And then of course you can listen to Hey Riddle Riddle, which I edit and engineer, as well as the Campaign Skyjacks podcast, another actual play podcast that I edit. Yeah, I mean, out there in just all the NFT discords in the metaverse, you know, just look for me. I got my pixelized pup.
Casey Toney is XXX Funky Kong XXX on the Discord. You'll find him there.
Yeah.
Hey, you know me. I'm your good friend, Eric. You've heard me on different episodes of this. You can find me on Twitter at L_Silvero, EL_SALVERO.
It's your name as if you were a Lucha Libre wrestler.
It's my name if I was a Lucha Libre wrestler. Thank you, Brandon. You can also find, if you want to submit questions for people to give you actually good advice on this podcast, you can go to the form on our website, gamesandfeelings.com/questions. You can also follow us on Twitter at gamesandfeelings. It's like we're Toys R Us. We're Games and Feelings.
So you got to spell it. Look, I mean, it's important.
Spelling is important. And the only thing that is more important is for you to remember the instruction manual doesn't have anything about leveling up your feelings.